James Miller stood at the observation window of Deep Space Repair Station Delta, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. 20 years of fixing ships had left their mark on those hands. Burns from hot pipes, scars from sharp metal, and calluses from countless tools. The repair station hung in space at Earth's L5 point, a massive structure of interconnected docking bays and workshops that looked like a metal spider web against the stars. "Chief, we've got something strange on the long-range scanners," Tom called from his monitoring station. The young technician's voice carried a note of uncertainty that made James turn around. "Define strange," James said, walking over to look at the screen. In his experience, strange usually meant expensive or dangerous. Sometimes both. It's not matching any known ship designs in our database. And it's moving weird, sort of limping through space. Tom pulled up a visual feed, and James's eyes widened. The approaching vessel looked like nothing he'd ever seen. It had a crystalline structure that seemed to flow and shift, with no clear separation between hull and engines. Pulses of multicolored energy rippled through its surface in irregular patterns. But what caught James's attention was the way it listed to one side, like a wounded animal. "Open a channel," James ordered, straightening his station uniform. First contact situations weren't in his job description, but neither was turning away a ship in distress. The screen flickered to life, and James found himself looking at a being that appeared to be made of living metal and light. Its voice came through the translator as a series of musical tones that resolved into words. "This is Captain Bright Star in Storms of the Luminarian research vessel Dawn Seeker. We need help." The alien captain's voice carried both desperation and embarrassment. "Our quantum drive is failing, and none of the repair stations in 3 sectors would attempt fixes on our technology." James studied the readings flooding his screens. The ship's power signature was wildly unstable, and half the systems showed patterns he couldn't even begin to understand. But underneath all that exotic tech, he could see something familiar: the basic principles of motion and energy that governed all ships, whether they were built in Detroit or the depths of space. "This is Chief James Miller of Repair Station Delta. Captain, bring your ship into Bay 7. We'll take a look." He ignored Tom's startled glance. You would attempt repairs, but we are not of your federation. Our technology is unlike anything." "Captain," James interrupted gently, "a ship's a ship. They all follow the same basic rules of physics, even if they do it in different ways. Let's get you docked before that drive gets worse." The docking procedure was tense. The Dawn Seeker's unusual design meant standard automatic systems wouldn't work. James had to talk the alien ship in manually, using the station's tractor beams with the precision of a surgeon. As the crystalline vessel finally settled into the repair bay, he got his first good look at the damage. The quantum drive wasn't just failing, it was trying to fold space in ways that made his head hurt to look at. The ship's diagnostic systems were flashing warnings in at least 6 different alien languages, and there was a distinct possibility that the whole thing could collapse into a localized space-time anomaly. James did what he always did when faced with an impossible repair job. He pulled out his old leather tool bag, the one his grandfather had used to fix cars back when people still drove them on Earth, and grabbed his most basic diagnostic tool, a simple resonance scanner he'd modified himself. "Sir," Tom said nervously, "shouldn't we wait for the xenotech specialists?" James shook his head, already walking toward the ship's access port. "The way the drive's degrading, we got maybe 3 hours before things get really interesting. Sometimes you need to stop thinking about what you don't know and start working with what you do." As he approached the alien vessel, he saw the metallic crew watching him with what he guessed was a mixture of hope and skepticism. That was fine. He'd seen that look before, usually right before he fixed something unfixable. "All right," he said both to his team and the alien crew. "Let's see what makes this beautiful ship tick." Inside the alien ship, James moved his scanner slowly across the crystalline walls. The device's simple display showed energy patterns that reminded him of water flowing through pipes, if the water glowed and occasionally tried to bend reality. "Your device," Captain Bright Star in Storm said, their metallic form shifting in what seemed like confusion. "It's so basic. Our diagnostics suite alone contains quantum computers that—" "Sometimes simple is better," James interrupted, watching the scanner's readings. "Complex equipment can get confused by too many variables. This little thing, it just shows me where the energy's flowing and where it's not." He tapped the scanner's worn casing. "Like feeling a pulse." The alien captain's glow dimmed slightly. "But how can you understand our quantum drive? Even other advanced species struggle with luminarian technology." James smiled, reaching into his tool bag. He pulled out an old-fashioned wrench and held it up next to a section of the pulsing crystal wall. "See this pattern here? It's not so different from a car's fuel injection system. Energy goes in, conversion happens, power comes out. The principles don't change just because the tech gets fancier." Tom, who had followed them inside, looked skeptical. "Chief, you're not seriously comparing their quantum drive to a car engine." "Why not?" James ran his fingers along a seam in the crystal, feeling the vibrations. "Every engine has a rhythm. When something's wrong, that rhythm changes." He pressed his ear against the wall, closing his eyes. The alien crew watched in bewilderment as the human repair chief literally listened to their ship. "There," James said suddenly, pointing to a spot where several crystal paths intersected. "Your quantum field is out of sync right here. It's like timing belts slipping on an engine. Small problem, big consequences." The captain's light pattern swirled rapidly. "But our diagnostics show the quantum matrices." "Your diagnostics are part of the system that's failing," James explained, already pulling more tools from his bag. "They're trying to analyze the problem using the same broken patterns. Sometimes you need to step back and look with fresh eyes." He pulled out what looked like a modified tuning fork and struck it gently. The crystal wall responded with a faint harmonic hum. "Tom, get me the phase inverter from Bay 4. And the old electromagnetic pulse generator. The analog one, not the digital." As Tom hurried off, the alien engineer who had been silently observing spoke up. Their voice carried a tone of disbelief. "You intend to repair a quantum drive with acoustic tools?" "Not exactly," James said, continuing to test different sections of crystal. "But every form of energy has a frequency. Find the right frequency, and you can get things back in sync." He looked up at the worried alien faces. "Think of it like pushing a swing. Push at the wrong time, you fight the natural motion. Push at the right time, everything works smoothly." Tom returned with the requested equipment. James quickly connected the pulse generator to the phase inverter, creating a makeshift frequency modulator. It wasn't pretty. Wires exposed, parts clearly cobbled together from different sources, but his experienced hands moved with confidence. "This might feel a bit strange," he warned, positioning the device near the troubled intersection. "But it should reset your quantum field's oscillation pattern. Like rebooting a computer, but with energy waves instead of data." He activated the device. A low hum filled the ship, and the crystal walls flickered. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, the erratic energy pulses steadied. The sickly fluctuations in the quantum field smoothed out, falling into a steady rhythm that felt right even to the aliens' sophisticated senses. Captain Bright Star in Storms stared at their ship's diagnostic displays in amazement. "The quantum matrix, it's stabilizing. But how? Our best engineers said it would require complete replacement." James packed his tools away with practiced care. "Sometimes healing works better than replacing. We humans learned that lesson the hard way, fixing things during our early space days when replacement parts were months or years away." He patted the crystal wall fondly. "Your ship just needed a gentle push to remember its proper rhythm." The alien crew's glow had brightened considerably. their metallic forms reflecting the now steady pulses of their ship's restored power system. They looked at their human savior with new respect, beginning to understand that perhaps advanced technology wasn't always the answer to every problem. 2 weeks after fixing the Luminarian ship, James sat in his office reviewing repair requests. The usual stack of forms had grown unusually large. He rubbed his tired eyes, wondering if he was seeing things. "Tom," he called through the open door, "are you sure these numbers are right?" The young technician hurried in, tablet in hand. "Yes, sir. 17 alien ships requested docking permission just this morning. That makes 43 this week." He paused, looking somewhat bewildered, "and they're all asking for you by name." James leaned back in his chair, which creaked in protest. The station's repair bays, normally busy with human and allied ships, were now packed with vessels of every imaginable design. Some looked like giant snowflakes made of metal, others like clouds of floating spheres held together by energy fields. "Looks like our Luminarian friends spread the word," he said, watching through his office window as a ship that seemed to be made of living crystal maneuvered into Bay 12. The station's communication system chimed. "Chief Miller," a voice that sounded like rustling leaves announced, "the botanical collective ship Green Vots Growing requests your personal inspection of their root dry system." Before James could respond, another call came in. "Repair Station Delta, this is trading vessel Starwalker. Our quantum compression coils need the famous human touch we heard about." Tom couldn't help grinning. "Famous, huh?" James shook his head, but he was smiling too. "Fame's not going to fix these ships. Get the crew together. All shifts. We're going to need everyone." Over the next few days, Repair Station Delta became a hub of constant activity. Ships from dozens of species arrived, each with their own unique problems and equally unique technologies. The station's corridors filled with beings of all shapes and sizes, from towering energy creatures to tiny mechanical collectives. What amazed the aliens most wasn't just that humans could fix their ships, it was how they did it. They watched in fascination as James and his team used simple tools to diagnose complex problems, applied basic mechanical principles to advanced technology, and found creative solutions using whatever was at hand. "Watch this," James told a group of alien engineers who had gathered to observe him fix a plasma injector. He held up an old stethoscope. Sometimes the best way to understand a problem is to listen to it. The aliens muttered among themselves as James pressed the stethoscope against the injector's housing, closing his eyes in concentration. Their advanced sensors and quantum scanners lay unused, while the human used a tool that would have been familiar to a doctor from 2 centuries ago. "There's your problem," he said after a moment. "The resonance is off. The plasma flow's turbulent, like water hitting a bent pipe." He made a small adjustment with a manual wrench, and the injector's angry red glow settled into a healthy blue. The station's reputation grew so quickly that James had to implement a new scheduling system. Ships were categorized by urgency of repairs needed, with emergency cases getting priority. The station's mechanics worked in shifts around the clock, learning something new from each alien vessel they fixed. One evening, as James finished updating the repair logs, he found an unusual message waiting for him. It was from the Galactic Engineering Council, a body he hadn't even known existed. "They're calling us the Miracle Workers' Den," Tom said, reading over his shoulder. "They want to know our secrets." James looked around his office at the walls covered in old technical manuals, hand-drawn diagrams, and photos of successfully repaired ships. Next to his degree in aerospace engineering hung his grandfather's ancient certificate in automobile repair. "No secrets," he said, standing up as another repair request came in. "Just generations of humans figuring out how to fix things with whatever they had available." He picked up his trusted tool bag. "Now let's see what today's miracle needs to be." The station's speakers crackled again. "Chief Miller to Bay 3. Urgent repair request from a crystalline high ship." James smiled. Just another day at humanity's newest contribution to galactic civilization. teaching the stars that sometimes the simplest solutions were the best ones. The emergency alarm jolted James awake at 3 a.m. station time. He was out of bed and pulling on his uniform before the computer finished announcing the alert. "Chief," Tom's voice crackled through the comm system. "You need to see this. Now." James ran to the control room, his boots echoing in the empty corridors. When he reached the main viewport, he stopped dead in his tracks. The sight before him made his heart skip a beat. A massive ship hung in space near the station, so big it made other vessels look like toys. Its hull was a patchwork of different technologies, some sections crystalline, others metallic, and parts that seemed to shift between states. But what caught James's attention were the waves of dangerous energy rolling off it. "What am I looking at?" he asked, though he already had a bad feeling about the answer. "Colonial transport ship Star Haven," Tom replied, his fingers dancing across the control panel. 50,000 colonists in cryo-sleep, multiple species. They got cascading system failures across all decks. He swallowed hard. 7 repair stations already turned them away, said it was unfixable. James studied the readings. The ship was a mess of incompatible technologies barely holding together. Different species had added their own systems over the years, each layer of tech fighting against the others. It was like trying to run a computer with 5 different operating systems at once. "How long?" James asked. "Their main power grid is failing. Life support systems for the cryopods will start shutting down in." Tom checked the numbers again. 8 hours. James grabbed his comm unit. "All repair crews, emergency stations. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." Within minutes, the station hummed with activity. Repair crews rushed to their posts as the massive colonial ship was carefully guided into the largest repair bay. James led his team through the airlock, and they got their first look inside. The ship's corridors were a nightmare of clashing technologies. Crystalline power conduits crossed paths with plasma tubes. Quantum field generators competed with old-fashioned fusion reactors. Nothing worked together properly, and everything was failing. "Sir," one of his mechanics called out, "these systems, they're not just incompatible. They're actively fighting each other. It's like they're at war." James nodded, his mind already racing through possibilities. He'd seen this before, but never on such a massive scale. It reminded him of the early days of computers, when different brands refused to work together. "Tom," he called, "get me the ship's construction history, every upgrade, every modification, and find me the original blueprints." As data flooded their tablets, James walked the length of the main engineering deck, touching walls, listening to machines, feeling the vibrations of dying systems. Each section told its own story of desperate attempts to improve the ship, each species adding their best technology without understanding how it would affect the whole. "Look here," he said, pointing to a junction where 3 different power systems met. "This crystal matrix is trying to regulate quantum energy using mechanical methods. And these plasma conduits, they're being forced to follow paths they were never designed for." The ship groaned, a deep sound that made everyone's teeth rattle. Warning lights flashed across every panel. "Power grid at 40%, Tom shouted. "Life support in the cryo sections is starting to fail." James looked around at his team's worried faces. 50,000 lives hung in the balance. This wasn't just about fixing the ship anymore. It was about saving a small city's worth of people, all sleeping peacefully while their lives depended on human ingenuity. He took a deep breath and opened his tool bag. "Okay, listen up. This ship isn't unfixable. It's just speaking in too many languages at once." He pulled out his old scanner and a handful of basic tools. "We're going to teach these systems how to talk to each other. Tom, get me every translator and engineer we have. We're going to need everyone's skills for this one." The ship shuddered again, but James remained calm. Sometimes the biggest problems needed the simplest solutions, and if there was one thing humans were good at, it was making different pieces work together, whether they wanted to or not. James stood in the heart of the dying colonial ship, surrounded by screens showing failing systems. 6 hours remained before the cryopods would start to fail. Around him, his repair team worked frantically, trying to understand the maze of conflicting technologies. "It's no use," called out Mike, one of the senior mechanics. "Every time we fix one system, 3 more start failing. It's like playing whack-a-mole with quantum physics." But James wasn't listening. He was staring at an old maintenance panel, his eyes unfocused. Something about the pattern of failures was familiar. It reminded him of something from Earth's history. "Tom," he called suddenly, "bring up Earth's technological timeline. Focus on the period when we first started connecting different countries' power grids." The young technician looked confused but did as asked. Historical images flashed across a screen, showing the early days of global power integration. "There," James pointed excitedly. "That's what we're seeing here. Look at these alien systems. They're acting just like Earth's power grids did when we first tried to connect them. Different frequencies, different standards, everything fighting against everything else." He turned to face his team. "We're not looking at broken systems. We're looking at systems that were never meant to work together in the first place. Just like back home, when every country had its own electrical standards." Understanding dawned on the faces around him. Humans had dealt with this problem before, just on a smaller scale. Every time Earth developed new technology, they had to make it work with older systems. "Chief," Tom said, checking his readings, "the quantum matrix is losing coherence. We've got maybe 5 hours left." James nodded, already moving. "Break into teams. Team 1, map every power system on this ship. Team 2, find all the conversion points where different technologies meet. Team 3, start setting up bypass channels, like adapters between different plug types." The repair crews scattered, their footsteps echoing through the massive ship. James led Tom to the main engineering console, where they could see the whole picture. "See these energy patterns?" James traced lines on the screen. Every species added their best technology, thinking it would make the ship better. But they didn't account for how these systems would interact. He pulled out his old scanner, modified with parts from a dozen alien devices. Humans learned this lesson the hard way. We had VHS and Betamax, Android and Apple, different electrical outlets in every country. We got good at making things work together because we had to. Warning alarms blared as another system crashed. The lights flickered, and somewhere deep in the ship, something made a sound like thunder. "Power grid at 25%, someone shouted. But James smiled. In the chaos of failing systems, he saw the solution. "We don't need to fix each system," he said. "We need to help them talk to each other." He pulled up the ship's original blueprints and started marking points. "Here, here, and here. We'll create interface nodes, like universal translators for energy. Each system can keep speaking its own language, but now they'll understand each other." The repair teams reported in, confirming James's theory. Every major failure happened where different technologies met. It wasn't about fixing what was broken. It was about building bridges between systems that couldn't communicate. 4 hours left, Tom reported, his voice tense. James reached into his tool bag and pulled out an old Earth device, a universal power converter from the days when international travel meant carrying a dozen different adapters. "Sometimes," he said, holding up the simple device, "the best solutions come from learning the hard way." He turned to his crew. "Let's teach these systems how to play nice together. We didn't come all this way into space to let 50,000 people die because their technology can't get along." The repair teams moved with new purpose, no longer trying to fix individual systems, but working to create harmony between them. They had 4 hours to save 50,000 lives, using lessons learned from centuries of human technological growing pains. And for the first time since the colonial ship arrived, James felt certain they would succeed. 3 hours remained before the colonial ship's life support would fail. Deep in the engine room, James and his team worked with focused intensity. Sparks flew as they installed their newly created universal translators at key points throughout the massive vessel. Power Node 1 is online. Mike called from his station. The crystal matrix in front of him pulsed with a steady blue light, finally working in harmony with the mechanical systems around it. James watched the energy readings on his tablet. The first interface node was doing its job, smoothing out the conflicts between different technologies. Like a conductor leading an orchestra, it helped each system play its part without fighting the others. "Tom, how's the quantum field looking?" James asked, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Stabilizing, Chief. The conversion rate is holding at 92%. Tom's fingers flew across his control panel. It's like the systems are learning to dance together." James nodded, moving to the next junction point. They had modified dozens of Earth's universal power adapters, combining them with alien tech to create something entirely new. Each adapter now contained a simple but clever program based on Earth's old protocol conversion software. "Remember dial-up internet?" James asked as he worked. "How modems had to convert digital signals to sound and back again. That's what we're doing here, just with quantum fields and plasma flows instead of phone lines." Another alarm blared. 2 hours remaining. But now they had a pattern that worked. All across the ship, repair teams installed the hybrid adapters. Human ingenuity was building bridges between alien technologies that had never been meant to work together. In the ship's control room, representatives from 5 different species watched in amazement. Their best engineers had declared this problem impossible to solve. Yet here were humans, using modified versions of their own primitive adapters to make advanced technology work together. "Power Node 2 is online," came another call. Then, Node 3 responding. The ship's energy grid began to stabilize as each new connection was made. "It's like teaching everyone to speak the same language," James explained to the watching aliens. "Each system keeps its own way of doing things, but now they can understand each other." He pointed to where a crystalline power conduit merged smoothly with a plasma channel. "See, no more fighting, just cooperation." A cheer went up as the 4th node came online. The ship's main power grid jumped to 60%, then 70%. Warning lights began switching from red to yellow, then to green. "1 hour left," Tom reported. "Cryopod systems are starting to recover. Power flow is evening out across all decks." James moved to the main engineering console, watching as the new network of adapters did its work. What they'd created wasn't just a repair, it was a whole new way of handling different technologies. Each adapter learned from the systems it connected to, adjusting its conversion protocols in real time. "Chief," Mike called out, "the aliens are asking for the designs. They want to know how we did it." James looked at their creation. It wasn't pretty. Earth adapters modified with alien parts, held together in places with what looked suspiciously like duct tape. But it worked. It worked better than anyone had expected. "Give them everything," he said. "This isn't just about saving one ship anymore. This could help everyone." As the final nodes came online, the colonial ship's power grid stabilized at 95%. Life support systems returned to normal, and the 50,000 sleeping colonists remained safely in their cryopods, never knowing how close they had come to disaster. The alien engineers crowded around the human repair team, their translators struggling to keep up with their excited questions. How had humans thought of this? Why had no one tried it before? James just smiled, patting the jury-rigged adapter that had saved 50,000 lives. "Sometimes the best solutions come from having to make do with what you have," he said. "Humans have been doing that since we first started building things. We just learned to think differently about problems." The ship's systems hummed in perfect harmony, different technologies working together for the first time. Human innovation had done more than save lives. It had shown the galaxy a new way forward. 6 months after saving the colonial ship Star Haven, Repair Station Delta had changed beyond recognition. New docking bays stretched out like petals of a metal flower, each designed to handle ships from different species. But the biggest change was the new building attached to the station's core, the Galactic Repair Academy. James walked through its main hall, his footsteps echoing off walls decorated with technical diagrams from 100 worlds. Young engineers from dozens of species worked at practice stations, learning to combine their advanced technology with simple human repair principles. "The morning class is ready, Chief," Tom said, now wearing the sharp uniform of an academy instructor. He had grown more confident in the months since the Starhaven incident, teaching alien engineers how to think like human repair workers. James nodded, entering the classroom. The students straightened in their seats, some sitting, some floating, some existing as patterns of light. All of them were here to learn what humans called the knack for fixing things. "Today's lesson is about improvisation," James began, placing his old tool bag on the desk. "Sometimes the best solution isn't the fanciest one. Sometimes it's about understanding the basic principles and working with what you have." He pulled out his trusted scanner, now modified with parts from 20 different alien technologies. This scanner started as a simple Earth tool, but like humanity, it learned to adapt, to grow, to combine the best of old and new. The alien students leaned forward, their various sensory organs focused intently on the device. They had learned to respect these seemingly primitive human tools that could diagnose problems their advanced systems missed. Outside the classroom window, a massive ship moved slowly past. The Starhaven, now a regular visitor to the station. Its once conflicting systems worked in perfect harmony thanks to the human-designed universal adapters. The design had spread across the galaxy, helping species integrate their technologies in ways never before possible. "Chief," a crystalline student raised an appendage. "Is it true that humans learned to fix things because your technology was inefficient?" James smiled. "We learned because we had to. Every country on Earth developed different standards, different ways of doing things. We spent centuries making those differences work together." He held up a handful of old Earth power adapters. "These simple devices taught us something important. There's always a way to build bridges between different systems." The lesson continued, but James's mind wandered to how much had changed. The station now hosted regular conferences where species shared repair techniques. The universal adapter design had evolved, spawning new technologies based on human principles of compatibility and adaptation. After class, James walked to his favorite observation window. The view had changed too. Ships of all sizes and designs moved smoothly through space, their once incompatible technologies working together thanks to human innovation. Repair Station Delta had become more than just a repair stop. It was a symbol of how different species could work together. "Emergency call coming in." Tom's voice came through the comm. "A crystalline high ship needs urgent repairs." But this time, there was a smile in his voice. "This time they're bringing their own universal adapters. They just want you to check their work." James picked up his tool bag, feeling its comfortable weight. Inside, old Earth tools sat next to alien devices, each modified and improved, but still fundamentally simple. Just like humans, adapting, learning, growing, but never forgetting the basic principles that got them here. "You know what makes humans special?" he said to Tom as they walked to the repair bay. "It's not that we're smarter or more advanced. It's that we never stopped learning from our mistakes. Every broken machine, every incompatible system, every jury-rigged repair, they all taught us something." The repair bay doors opened, revealing their latest challenge. James smiled, reaching for his scanner. Somewhere in the galaxy, another ship was probably breaking down right now. And thanks to what humans had taught them, its crew knew exactly where to go for help. The future of galactic repair work had turned out to be a perfect blend of advanced alien technology and simple human wisdom. Just like Earth's old repair shops, where mechanics could fix anything with basic tools and clear thinking, the stars had learned that sometimes the best solutions were the simplest ones.